Last Cian O'Callaghan, and firstly, just before I get into the substance of what I want to say, I just want to raise 2 points in relation to people objecting to housing. And of course, in a democratic system, people have a right to put in planning submissions if they wish. But just for absolute clarity, in my constituency, and anyone can check this, the vast bulk in terms of political representatives that put in objections to housing in my constituency are in the Fianna Fáil party. That's an absolute objective fact that anyone can check. Secondly, just to say, when you look at South Dublin County Council, when councillors voted to dezone land earmarked for 100 social homes, what parties were those councillors in? They were in 2 parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. They're just 2 objective facts to start with. Last Cian O'Callaghan, we need as many people as possible to come to the Raised Roof demonstration that's taking place on Saturday at 1 o'clock, meeting at the Garden of Remembrance in Parnell Square. And I would encourage as many people to do that and to bring their families and friends to that demonstration and to that protest. And secondly, I would make the point that it's very important that everyone who is affected by the housing crisis and everyone who is supporting them in order to put this government under pressure, that everyone unites as much as possible, especially behind this campaign. That includes older people, younger people, renters, students, people with disabilities, members of the travelling community, people who are homeless, people who are struggling to buy their own home, people seeking international protection. If all of us unite, there is strength in that. Ní neart go cur le chéile, there is no strength without unity, Last Cian O'Callaghan. There's 5 things, Last Cian O'Callaghan, that I want to draw the House's attention to that the government have been telling us on housing that simply are not true. And this is a form of gaslighting of people who cannot access the housing that they need to have a safe and stable and secure life, to be constantly told things by the government that are simply just not true on housing. The first thing is the government tell us that their housing plan is working. Clearly it is not. It's not working for people who are stuck living at home. Last year alone, the number of young people aged 25 to 34 stuck living in their childhood bedrooms increased to a staggering 41% in Ireland. That was a staggering increase in just 1 year of the Minister being in government and being in office, a staggering increase from 33.5% to 41%. You wouldn't see any other increase like that anywhere else in Europe. That's an incredible part of his record, putting people's lives on hold so they can't live independent lives, affecting their mental health, affecting their relationship with their parents and their families, affecting their relationships with their partners and their children living with them. It's not working for renters. Rents have doubled over the last decade. We've seen today the largest ever increase recorded by Daft since they started collecting data of 14.1%. 4.3% rent increase nationally, just over 3 months. Never been seen before since they've been recording that data. The housing plan is not working for people who would like to buy a home. The government say that they believe in home ownership, yet we're seeing home ownership levels continue to collapse under this government. And even the Housing for All plan, if it met its targets, which it is not, if it met its targets, as Lord Sir and others have pointed out, then home ownership levels will continue to collapse because it is based on more and more housing provision by investment funds at rates that people cannot afford. The housing plan is not working for people who've become homeless. We have record numbers of people living in emergency accommodation, not to mention all the people living in tents, sleeping on floors and on couches. The number of children living in emergency accommodation has increased by 43% in the last year while the Minister has been in office. And it's not working for broader society. It's not working for people trying to run schools, hospitals, healthcare services, all manner of businesses trying to retain and recruit staff, finding that very difficult in terms of the accommodation crisis. Not working for parents who are sick, worrying about their children if they get an eviction notice and what's going to happen to their child's development. Second thing the government has been telling us that simply isn't true, and the Minister has been saying this in the House and the Taoiseach in the last couple of weeks, that housing commencements are up. In fact, they are down 14% over the last year. The government have been telling us that they will spend €4 billion on capital expenditure on housing this year. They're nowhere close to doing this, and in fact they're almost €500 million behind their projected spend for the first 9 months of this year. The government have promised and told us that 9,000 new build social homes will be built this year. The only figures we have is that the first half this year is that 1,765 new build homes were delivered. Now, when you drill into those figures, Last Concordia, you realise that that figure isn't even correct. In Dublin, for example, across the 4 local authorities, the number of new build homes delivered by local authorities in Dublin in the first half this year was zero. That's the figure behind all the hype. When you look at the social homes delivered by not-for-profit housing organisations across the 4 Dublin local authorities, for example, the majority of those in the government's figures of being completed in the first half this year, in fact, were not actually completed and finished. And that's been confirmed by the not-for-profit housing organisations that were involved in building them and delivering them. The government tell us that the state is the biggest actor in housing, and the Taoiseach, in fact, keeps on telling us this in particular. But analysis by the Journal and fact-checked in the Journal published today found that this claim that's repeatedly made is in fact false. We're told by the Minister for Housing, and I welcome the purchase of homes when landlords give notices to quit for tenants and keeping them in situ. I very much welcome that. We're told that scheme is in place and that's operating around the country, but then we're told by local authorities in at the Oireachtas Housing Committee today that they won't be buying any more homes under that scheme, and they won't be doing that unless they get approval from the department. And they were very, very clear on that, and saying there's no certainty on that scheme going forward. So that's what they were telling us today in the Oireachtas Housing Committee. We're told by the government that things are getting better, just not at a fast enough pace. Well, rents have never been so high in this country. House prices have never been so high. Homelessness is at record levels. And at the same time as this, the profits of some of Ireland's largest developers are soaring. The government are busy patting themselves on the back, saying what a great job that they're doing. But in terms of housing delivery, even this year, the prediction of 20,000 new build homes doesn't come anywhere close to the 40,000, at least 40,000 new build homes that we need every year, and that everybody agrees that we need every year. We're told by the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, that young people, if they emigrate, will be paying higher rents. Now, this is absolutely delusional. According to Eurostat, Dublin is the most expensive capital in the European Union for renting. More expensive than Paris, Copenhagen, Luxembourg, Stockholm, Helsinki, Berlin, Madrid, Vienna, Lisbon, Rome, Brussels, and the list goes on. And yet we're told by the Taoiseach of this government that people will be paying higher rents if they emigrate abroad. Is the government that unaware of the situation in Ireland? Are they that unaware that rents have gone up 4.3% nationally just in the last just over 3 months? Are they not aware that we're the only country in Europe where rent increases are heavily contributing to the rate of inflation in Ireland? That's not happening anywhere else across Europe. Is the government completely unaware of this? There's no shortage of solutions on this, Last Concordia. In terms of rental supply, there's 35,000 empty rental homes on the census night, a lot of them short-term lets. And to date, the government has still failed to properly regulate short-term lets, which is disrupting the supply of rental properties available for people. It is leading to evictions where people are being evicted, and then the rental home is being converted into a short-term let where a landlord can get a higher return. And yet the government has failed to do anything on that. We had reports at the weekend of new build apartments up on Airbnb for rents that would work out at about €6,000 per month. And that can happen, of course, because the government has failed utterly to regulate that, something that they could do straight away. There's other measures that are needed. We need to build 20,000 public homes a year at least, and the Social Democrats has provided costed, detailed plans on how that could be done. We need to introduce the O'Callaghan model and we need to expand that across the country. where affordable purchase homes are made available. We need to end subsidies for developers and put that money into affordable purchase, cost rental and social homes. In conclusion, Last Corla, just want to urge everybody to come to the Raise the Roof protest this Saturday at 1 o'clock, meeting in Parnell Square, and really want to urge everyone to unite behind that campaign. Gurv Magat.